Hello, I wanted to go over the directions for this introduction practice. I know you've written introductions in the past in 6th grade and 7th grade, but one thing I've noticed because I've taught 8th grade for a while is that we often need a refresher. We need a little practice, and sometimes it's a really great idea to try out some attention getting techniques that maybe we haven't used before. There are so many different ways to capture our readers' attention. And I feel like sometimes we just get stuck in a rut. We just see a lot of simple questions that we're asking the reader, for instance. For example, I've had students time and time again ask me that we used to write this essay about this story, Raymond's Run. And in the story, the main character has a brother who has a disability. And her time and time again, I got the same attention getter when they wrote an essay about the story. And it was, do you have a brother with a disability? And I want you to think about that question. Is that a high interest question? I'm either going to answer yes, and what's your point, author? Or I'm going to answer no, and what's your point, author? That doesn't get me thinking. So we want to think outside of the box a little bit. We want to try out some different techniques. We definitely don't want to get stuck in the rut of asking a question like that. We definitely can use questioning, but when we use questioning, we want to use it right. Like a series of engaging rhetorical questions that really get someone pondering and thinking. So I think it's a good idea to take a break from that. Also, I think another attention getter that gets used a lot is the famous quote or the Webster's dictionary definition. I'd like to see you try an attention getter that's completely original. You come up with it. You don't research it by looking for a quote or looking for a definition. And so in this assignment, you're going to pick a silly, meaningless thesis, and you're just going to try to design some type of attention getter for it. We're going to create a bridge to bridge it to the thesis. And basically, what a bridge means, and I'm sure you saw this in the notes, but you're finding a way to tie the attention getter to the thesis. So it doesn't seem like we just abruptly go from an attention getter and jump into a thesis. We don't really make that connection clear between the two things. So sometimes you've got to bridge what the attention getter does to the actual subject matter of the thesis statement. And all of that's in your notes. Okay, so for this assignment, if you're learning from home, you're going to be picking a thesis from the next slide, and you're going to use that as the start of your practice. And it's just any thesis you want. This is just fun. You're not actually writing it. You're just writing the intro for this pretend essay that you're going to write. Well, we know in an introduction, we have to start with a hook. And each slide represents a type of hook. And there's an example linked into this slide. So you're going to pick the technique that you'd like, and you're going to come up with your attention getter, your bridge, and then put in your thesis statement. So you'll have, in the end, a complete introduction. So you might get into this slide presentation before or after your classmates have. So basically what you're going to do is look for a blank slide, one that's not been used yet. Now let's say the blank slides that are left are not techniques you want to try. If that's the case, very easily you can copy the slide that you want and just come down to the end of the presentation and paste, and you'll see it added a slide at the end. So, and let's say it was already typed in, all I need to do is delete whatever was typed in there, and now I have a nice fresh place to create my my introduction. One thing we need to make sure that we do though is to put our names in the speaker section. Okay, so you can see here where it says click to add speaker notes. So you would type your name here. That's how I'll know it's your slide. what I hope that you do is take some time and review what some of your classmates have done. Did you find it interesting? Did you find it engaging? Could you tell what the attention getter has to do with the thesis? Was it connected, or are you asking yourself, why this attention getter? I don't get what it has to do with this thesis statement. So here's an example. This is, let's say, the thesis that I picked. And don't worry, your thesis statements will be more interesting. But this is that essay I was talking about earlier. In Raymond's Run by Toni Cade Bambara, Squeaky is a dynamic character because she transforms from being selfish to unselfish. But in contrast, in The Circuit by Francisco Jimenez, Panchito is a static character because he is resilient throughout the text. So the hook type that we want here is a sensory experience. So we have to somehow engage someone so that they feel like they're hearing it, seeing it, smelling it, like they're in the middle of this sensory experience. We're going to create one of those, make sure it bridges to this thesis. Thump, thump, thump. The beating of your heart and your quickened breaths are the only sounds that register. Everything else is white noise. You look to your left, there's no one. You look to your right, and you sense your opponent closing in. You put your head down, adrenaline pulses through your body, and you push yourself across that finish line. Squeaky experienced the thrill of crossing a finish line in a May Day race that changed everything. In Raymond's Run by Toni Cade Bambara, Squeaky is a dynamic character because she transforms from being selfish to unselfish. But in contrast, in The Circuit by Francisco Jimenez, Panchito is a static character because he is resilient throughout the text. So you can see here we have this sensory experience, right, where it feels like I'm running a race. Well, what on earth does this race have to do with this thesis statement about Raymond's Run and The Circuit? So we've got to get that bridge in there. Squeaky experienced the thrill of crossing a finish line in a May Day race that changed everything. So what I've done here is I've created this sensory experience of running. We would have no idea what that sensory experience has to do with this thesis. But my bridge is where I point out that one of the characters in the thesis statement got to experience a race. So that's how I connect it. That's how I bridge my attention getter to my thesis statement. So here you can choose any one of these thesis statements you'd like. And that's what you're going to work with. So you take your thesis statement, you're going to copy and paste it into your slide. And then you're going to click on the example. And here's where you can find the hook that was linked in there, and you can find samples. So you just need to scroll down until you get to the one that fits with the slide that you chose. Like I said, after you've done yours, step back from it for a little bit and then come back, and your classmates should have filled in some of their intros too. So you can kind of take a look and see what you think was successful, not so successful. In class, I'll probably look at some of these and make some changes or suggest some changes. So it would be a good idea to check them out later.